2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to the NESN Soccer Show. I'm Mark, along with Marcus Omard, and we're back to talk a little Gold Cup. We're going to get into the big transfers going on over in Europe and in the world of soccer, and kind of hit a couple other subjects. But we're going to jump right into USA versus Martinique. I was vastly disappointed in this performance by the United States. I think that's kind of a general consensus with USA fans. So far, they've tied Panama and they've defeated Martinique 3-2. And they're in first place in Group B on goal difference over Panama. So in theory, it's where they want to be, but there's a lot of questions. And I think the main question is why, because we're just talking about it. Martinique, we have trouble even figuring out where players come from that make up their roster, because it's kind of not just the island, or it is mainly the island, but then a lot of them go to France, and they're technically a French, I don't want to say colony, but something.
Protectorate, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. And they're not an official FIFA, they're not recognized by FIFA, is the main thing.
Right.
So they don't play World Cup qualifiers, you know, and they can't qualify. This is essentially like the biggest tournament that they can play in. So in theory, even the United States B roster should be very comfortable against Martinique, and they were not comfortable at all. And they pulled away 2-0 kind of midway through the second half, but then gave that 2-0 lead up very quickly, and then Jordan Morris kind of saved the day. But, it was ugly. Why weren't they able to pull away?
They played a bad game.
Yeah.
It's been underwhelming, the Gold Cup so far. Through 2 games, I see more questions about the United States than answers. I hope before the Panama game that, you know, I could say this guy will be the number 2 player in this position. This guy will be. Few players seem to be really grasping the opportunity. And last night's game against Martinique was just another example of this current USA B team is a work in progress,
yeah.
And there's lots of progress that they have to make. To answer your question, you know, maybe Martinique, they were really up for it. It was kind of a game of their lives situation.
Right.
When they had already beaten Nicaragua, and they knew if they got something from the United States, that could guarantee a place in the quarterfinals,
Which would be massive for them.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So, but, you know, I watched the game. These guys weren't bad. It seemed like they knew what they were doing and what they wanted to do. Some of their players had searing pace, and
right.
I heard once, but I can't confirm, that some of them play professionally in France. So, and this would be in Ligue 2, in the 2nd division,
yeah.
Which is, you know,
it's good soccer.
It's good, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, you know, maybe comparable to some of the leagues we have here.
And that all makes it sound a little bit better. And you make some good points, and I can see the points, and I can sort of agree with them. But at the end of the day, I think it's just kind of, we want U.S. soccer to be at a point where when you take on a non-FIFA organization, it's kind of no problems, and it has more of just like a going through the motions feel. Like, the players can never be like that, but as a sort of a viewer and media members, as we take in this game, this is supposed to be like maybe some players that we haven't really seen get much playing time, get a significant amount of playing time, and play well, albeit against a lesser opponent, and we can sort of see what they're all about. That was not the case here. We had to like really struggle to pull this win out. I found myself just sort of blaming Bruce Arena. I don't know, maybe if the team just wasn't really up for it, if he kind of had them in more of a lackadaisical mood going into the game. He even said that they played well afterward, and I just think that results are results, and the result wasn't good enough. A 3-2 victory is not good enough for me against Martinique, and I think it's just sort of, we've talked about it in past weeks, how CONCACAF is rising in talent level and ability,
Yeah.
and USA and Mexico are sort of at this like, they're not rising at the same level, and everybody's just getting closer and closer.
Yes.
And I think when you put up a B roster and then Martinique is able to do what they did, it kind of just really puts it on display that our lesser players or our sort of second-tier players really can't put together a solid performance. And like, I understand we aren't Germany, but Germany put their B roster out and they won the Confederations Cup, and they looked like Germany while they did it.
Yeah.
And they were in control, and they were winning games by more than one goal and kind of comfortably. And I think that we expected that from the U.S. at least until like the semifinal, really. So it's kind of disappointing, and it kind of makes me wonder. And I know, and I think it's pretty understood that Bruce Arena is kind of this holdover coach until after the World Cup in 2018.
Right.
But and we're really looking ahead here, but I'm the next USA coach. The 2019 Gold Cup will be his first opportunity to really impress, viewers and media and whoever. And I just think that we'll never be kind of more than the sum of our parts. Like, Bruce Arena's not the guy that's going to take us to the next level. I feel like these first two games have almost proved it for me. I feel like it's a little bit of a hot take, maybe a strong reaction, but I don't think it is. I think it's kind of what we've all known, but Bruce Arena was kind of having a good first, tenure or beginning of his second tenure.
Yeah, yeah.
And people were like, well, maybe this Bruce Arena, like we can really get to another level. And I think it's kind of all come crashing back down that as long as Bruce Arena is there, he's not going to take these players to another level. He's not going to be the tactics genius. And it's kind of just going to be very simple, and just whatever players we have, that's what we're going to be.
I get the sense Bruce Arena is, he has a system.
Yeah.
And his system, for those of us who've been watching for a while, is 4 at the back. Everybody has a pretty simple job to do, and it's based off athleticism, determination. Tactical nuance is not the strength of Bruce Arena's style of play. It's really physical and mental versus technical and tactical. When you're playing in the Gold Cup, you're playing against teams who are they're counterattacking against the United States. They're not possessing the ball very much. Yeah. So it's almost like they eliminate the strengths that Bruce Arena's teams have. And I remember, against Martinique, a couple of the U.S. players tried to beat some of them with speed, and I was like, no,
not going to work.
That's not going to happen.
Because they're physically at kind of almost the same level.
Right, right. So the strengths that Bruce Arena's teams rely on historically, it seems over the first 2 games in the Gold Cup have been almost negated by the CONCACAF opposition, which is, and you have to remember the first game against Panama was played in the searing heat. I think it was 80-something degrees at kickoff. They had to take a water break after 30 minutes. So, I'm a big Bruce Arena backer, but he has limitations as a coach.
Right.
And I think one of them is when you're going against teams that are equally physical and maybe equally determined, want this Gold Cup group stage game, which we can call it a throwaway game for U.S. soccer, because what really matters is going to be how they perform in the knockout phase.
Right.
Should they get to the knockout phase?
I think they'll get there, but
yeah.
It's like,
I see the strengths in Arena's teams can become weaknesses against teams like Martinique and Panama.
Yeah, and I'm not calling for his head or anything like that. Of course not. But I think just these 2 games alone have kind of just maybe just brought me back down to earth, that are like, all right, Bruce Arena is here for one job, that's to get the U.S. to the World Cup. I know he said winning the Gold Cup is a goal for the year.
Sure.
But frankly, that's not the main concern. It's get to the World Cup and basically don't embarrass ourselves. And U.S. soccer better be very hot on the case for their next head coach. And I'm sure they have a very short list already. But I'm just kind of already looking forward to who that's going to be. Because, I'm excited for the 2018 World Cup, but I just don't think that, with Arena at the helm and with the talent level we have now, we're not there yet to make the leap into the semifinal of the World Cup. I don't think we're going to be able to do that. No. So, but that's kind of like the next step for the U.S.
Yeah.
That's not. I think with Jurgen, there was sort of like this idea that he was developing something that was going to be that, and it kind of all fell apart. But I think that was the hope. I'm not saying he was ever there.
Yeah.
Not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that was the hope for U.S. soccer when we hired Jurgen to be that guy that would take us to the next level. And he wasn't it, and Bruce clearly isn't it. So we'll see who the next guy is.
The World Cup semifinals are the province of the big boys.
Yeah.
The U.S. soccer team is miles away from there.
And I'll also say
Period.
that this USA roster, and I say this roster because we can bring in 6 players, and there's a lot of big names that we could be brought in.
Sure.
But this roster will not win the Gold Cup. I think if we come up against Mexico, we'll lose. I think if we come up against Jamaica or Costa Rica with this roster, we'll lose. Now, if they bring in Michael Bradley, if they bring in some other quality players, and not even Clint Dempsey, but even just some good players, that all changes very quickly. But these guys cannot get the job done. Obviously, I'm not very happy with how the game went last night.
No.
But that's what happens when you go win 3-2 against Martinique. It's not good enough.
Draw Panama 1-1.
Right, it's not good enough.
Coughing up leads.
I guess we've already, we got our little rundown here. I guess we've kind of talked about what we've learned from Team USA so far.
Yeah, more questions than answers.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of looking forward to what players are we bringing in to hopefully make a run in the knockout rounds. Because right now, we mentioned it, we are in first in the table, so that would mean that we would face a third place team out of group either A or C.
Right.
Which should be a very winnable game, and then on to the semifinal where I would expect to see
Mexico, Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I think the key is to avoid Mexico in the semifinal.
Yeah, until the final.
I'm not sure how the bracket will shape up yet. 4 points
still
after
a lot
2
of
games.
And it's just everybody seems to be on 4 points. Mexico and Jamaica, we're recording this Thursday afternoon, so they're not playing until tonight. But we'll see how it all shakes out. I think USA should be in good standing once the knockout rounds come around, and we'll see what players they get in. But any other teams that have sort of struck you or caught your attention so far in the Gold Cup outside of the U.S.?
Panama and Martinique, I've been impressed by what we've seen so far. I watched Mexico play against El Salvador, and they looked quite
formidable.
Good. Yeah. All these teams have their questions. I haven't seen a single team where I'm like, wow, they're going to go out and get the job done. Jamaica looked good for a stretch against Curacao. Canada has surprised me with.
Yeah, Canada's playing well.
Yeah.
So that's
with a little bit of style as well.
Right.
So I like seeing a good Canada team because
makes the CONCACAF better.
It does, yes. And their players, they have underachieved so terribly for the last 10 years. It's like, come on, Canada, give us a rival.
Maybe, and it'll be very encouraging if they can continue to play well in the next decade.
Yeah.
With them being a tri-host of the World Cup.
Certainly.
So that's encouraging. But the Gold Cup is kind of a weird tournament.
It is.
And a lot of weird things happen.
Certainly.
And one pretty weird thing happened. French Guiana started an ineligible player on purpose. And you know a little bit more about this guy. I know that he once played for the French national team in World Cups and now has come over. So what else can you tell us about this guy?
Florent Malouda didn't play for France once. He played 80 times for France. And he played in at least 2 or 3 World Cups. Won a lot with Chelsea in the Premier League. He's a star in Europe. He's now age 37, continuing his career in India, and he decides to play for the country of his birth. Now, because French Guiana is not officially recognized by FIFA, I forget what the term is, they decide they don't have to play by FIFA rules.
Right.
The problem is CONCACAF is playing the Gold Cup under FIFA rules.
Right.
So they told French Guiana beforehand Florent Malouda was not supposed to play in this tournament.
It was very clear.
Yes.
And what the penalty, I believe, is that regardless of the score, obviously, it goes in the books as a 3-0 defeat.
That's the case in a lot of other competitions.
Right, so they lost 3-0.
I thought Deadspin had a perfect headline. Deadspin said, French Guiana says, F it, and plays Florent Maluda anyway. Yeah, just another strange thing that happens in CONCACAF. Maybe they decide, we're not going to win the tournament, but we want to put on good shows for our country. And
right. Well, yeah. he was part of their qualifying for the CONCACAF Gold Cup,
right,
and played in all of those matches.
Yes,
which I guess weren't under FIFA regulations.
Yes.
So it's also an element
But the Gold Cup itself is under FIFA regulations.
And as like
it's the strangest thing.
He's like the most accomplished player on the roster
by far, and
like I would assume sort of a leader of the team.
Yes.
And somebody that, and you kind of go to the tournament and they're like, oh, now you're, I don't know if he's the captain, but your leader, like he can't play. And maybe they're just saying, no, if he can't play, then we're not going to play.
Right. It's almost like they're valuing the performance that they can put out there over 3 games more than the result. The result is going to be 3 losses, 9-0 due to the penalty. But I think French Guiana has decided that, hey, us putting on a good show is more important than even progressing out of the group in the Gold Cup. And or maybe there's a sense of injustice that they feel that
he should be allowed.
That he should be allowed to play since he was allowed to help qualify for the Gold Cup.
Right. Well, so far,
strange.
Yeah, it's very strange. They lost 4-2 to Canada in their opening match, and then tied Honduras 0-0,
which is a great result for French Guiana.
So I guess they're making the most of it, and in an odd way, because they weren't expected to advance to the knockout rounds, it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah.
For them. So that's the Gold Cup.
Look good and lose rather than look bad and try to win.
The Gold Cup continues in the knockout rounds are next Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah.
So we'll dive back into it next week.
Certainly.
But the Gold Cup, soccer is a worldwide sport, and there's a lot of other things going on.
Yes.
A gigantic headline this week was Wayne Rooney going back to Everton, his boyhood teenage club where he came up and broke into the Premier League before signing with Manchester United. Big comeback story for that. You've talked about it earlier this week, but it probably isn't going to be the biggest transfer as far as actual gameplay goes. What are your biggest transfers so far?
This week, it's all starting to happen. You know, people have been asking me for months, oh, what's this team going to do? What's that team? And I say, I don't really know. Wait until mid-July. Well, it's now July 13th, and things are happening. James Rodriguez just left Real Madrid to go to Bayern Munich. We kind of knew that he was going to be on the outs because I think back in December he said something's got to change, and I thought maybe he might move in December. Well, he joined Bayern Munich on a 2-year loan with an option to buy for about 35 million euros. That's probably the biggest, I called it a power move on Twitter. That's the biggest power move of a transfer this summer.
It's extremely popular too, apparently, because we found that tweet where Bayern Munich has already sold out of all their James Rodriguez jerseys in every size.
In every size.
And it was like, how long ago did this happen? Not too long. So
3 days?
Yeah.
2 days?
They're already out of stock.
Yes.
So they're probably going to like him. And he's been playing very well for his country, but with Real Madrid, I mean, it's such a talented team. Maybe he just wasn't involved in the way that he wanted to be involved in the team.
Yeah, he wants to play every single game.
Yeah.
And he never really had Zinedine Zidane's full faith and trust. And he was actually left out of the squad entirely in the Champions League final.
Right.
I don't follow Real Madrid on a game-to-game basis, but he was never one of the top guys.
And that's weird because he's a top talent in the world.
Oh, he's great. He scored 6 goals at the last World Cup, and he's got 25 and 30 million social media followers.
Colombia made a big run in that World Cup, and it was all him.
Yeah.
I'm not all him, but he was the center of attention for Colombia.
It's Colombia's best team in 25 years, and he's their best player.
I remember watching the Colombia-Brazil game in that World Cup when they got eliminated by Brazil.
Yeah.
And this was before Brazil lost, 7-1 to Germany or whatever it was. I was watching with a friend of mine who's from Colombia, and he was saying how they were not playing the way they always played just because it was Brazil. So it's like they should have even made it further. I think a lot of Colombia fans feel. We're kind of getting off topic, but like
that was one of the most brutal games I've ever seen. I think there was something like 40-something fouls.
Yeah.
That was the game Neymar had his back broken.
Right.
Yeah, that wasn't what you would expect out of Colombia, Brazil, but it was a street fight.
Yeah, CONMEBOL rivalries.
That's right.
Yeah. But okay, so Real Madrid.
What James will do is Bayern Munich has two wingers, Frank Ribery and Arjen Robben.
Yeah.
Both are old,
right,
33 plus. Both are injury prone. Arjen Robben injured himself playing tennis on his vacation this summer. I cannot make this up. So there are games for James Rodriguez to play there, and he's playing under his old coach Carlo Ancelotti, who brought him into Real Madrid in the first place, where I think he had 18 goals, 17 assists in his first season under Ancelotti. And he was doing great. He was on his way to becoming a Real Madrid.
He was the next thing.
Yeah, and then when they changed coaches, he just never really seemed to.
It must have been something beyond the playing ability, something personal going. Not personal, but just like Zidane didn't like him for some reason, and maybe Ronaldo didn't like him.
Didn't have the trust.
But our next guy, Dani Alves. I'm happy about this because I'm a bit of a Roma fan.
Okay.
But Dani Alves leaving Juventus for PSG. Pretty big move for PSG. I think he said he left to be a champion.
Yeah.
Which is a little odd.
Because he's been a champion.
Yeah.
He left to stay a champion.
I guess.
That was taken by a lot of people as a shot against Manchester City. Manchester City offered him a lot of money. They didn't pull the Brinks truck out for him, but they offered him good money to come in and be one of their right backs. And he seemed set to go to Manchester City. I thought it was just a matter of time before it happened. And then all of a sudden, Dani Alves is going to PSG. It was a real surprise transfer. This is kind of shaping up to be the summer of the hijack transfer, where a player seems like he's set to go somewhere, and then at the last minute, somebody else comes in and offers him twice as much, which is what PSG did, and he went there. Now, this is two big projects that are backed by power brokers in the Arab world. So PSG is Qatari backed. Manchester City is backed by the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah.
One of the Emirates, one of the sheikhs is backing them. So for the last 8 years, they've been plowing money into their teams. And I've been watching which one is going fastest. Both of them want to be European powerhouses.
Right.
Both of them want to win the Champions League. PSG has been a lot closer since this really started, and this is just another example.
And you said it, that the monster money flying around in these transfers. Lukaku, Everton to Man United. He got a big contract. What do you make of his?
Lukaku he's not going to make Manchester United champions. He's a goal scorer that they have. I have this offline. I often joke about players' transfer fees, where they are. Some of them, they bought him for 75 million pounds. I see him as a guy that'll give you, he's like a 15 million pound player that'll give you 5 years of it.
Right.
I would never expect him to score 30, 35 goals a season. He's played very well for Everton. He played well for West Brom, but I would think at his age and with his experience, he might have been further ahead. And I see it during the summer tournaments with Belgium, where he's playing against top international competition, and he kind of goes missing.
Yeah.
I don't expect Lukaku to win the Champions League for United.
No.
I have a feeling within the next year or two, they're going to spend twice as much on a striker that is better than Lukaku, and all of a sudden they will have, Lukaku will be the guy that plays every game and a half or every 2 games. But he might be the main man next year.
Well, he's under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Because of his contract.
Yeah.
But
that's the way of the world at Manchester United.
Yeah, if you go there,
it's pressure all the time.
It doesn't matter really how much money you make. You're always under pressure.
That's right.
And if Man United makes a move, Manchester City has to make a move. They signed Kyle Walker for, I'm reading, over 50 million pounds. another gigantic contract. Some people are probably like, who's Kyle Walker? I guess you were saying that City had their eye on him for a while.
Yes.
And it's not the worst signing, but it is a lot of money.
$50 million, which ties the record for a defender, ties David Luiz.
Yeah.
Now you look at David Luiz, he's a full international with Brazil. He's kind of a brand unto himself with the hair and the defensive adventures. When I saw David Luiz went for that much money, I thought, okay, maybe he could be worth that. Kyle Walker is now a 50 million pound defender.
It's outrageous.
He's been good in the Premier League. He's been good for bad England teams in recent years. Is he worth 50 million? I would say no. I think that's the kind of price you pay for somebody that's been succeeding in the Champions League for a few years. But that's the English player markup.
I guess so.
There's a premium you have to pay for players born in your own country, and that's just the case.
Yeah.
And also they're negotiating with Tottenham, whose managing director Daniel Levy is one of the tightest negotiators in the game. Yeah. I'm not surprised that he went to Manchester City. I am surprised that he cost that much, but after losing Dani Alves, I think they were desperate, and everybody knew it.
Okay, so the transfer window ends August 31st at 11 p.m. British summertime.
Yes.
Quickly, are there any big-time transfers that you're still looking out for, certain players that you think are going to be moved?
The biggest one, I think, is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who is at Dortmund. I expected him to move earlier this summer. There were reports about him moving out of his house in Germany and packing everything up. And then all of a sudden it's been about a month, nothing.
People always freak out about the house move.
Yes.
Maybe they're moving to a house in the same city.
Yeah.
Certainly a possibility.
Yeah,
a bigger house.
On the bigger contract that they signed to stay with the team.
Everybody calm down.
Yeah. I expected him to move, and it didn't happen. And so after Lukaku turned his back on Chelsea and went to Manchester United, about a day or two later, Chelsea is bidding for Aubameyang. Chelsea is kind of desperate for a striker. They don't know what they're going to do with Diego Costa. They want to let him go back to Atletico Madrid, but they have to wait. I think they offered 70 million euros for Aubameyang, which, in light of Lukaku's transfer fee, seems a little bit low.
Right.
As of now, Thursday afternoon, I don't know what Dortmund's response has been, but I have a feeling they're going to say double it and come back.
Right. All right. So we'll keep track of the transfer market up until the deadline and the rosters are officially set.
Yes. And it's a long way.
Yeah, it's a long way away. A lot can happen. Today, we got word that ex-FIFA executive Chuck Blazer had passed away at age 72. He had a bit of a checkered past. You got some more details on this?
Yes, he died of cancer at age 72, and he'd been sick for a number of years. But Chuck Blazer is the person who got the ball rolling on the FIFA scandal. He's the one, the FBI, they went after him for tax evasion and racketeering and a number of other charges. And he was the one that turned informant against a number of high-ranking FIFA officials.
Yeah.
He has a very complicated legacy in soccer and U.S. soccer. On the one hand, there's the criminal behavior. If he wasn't so sick, he would have died in prison as an old man. But on the other hand, he did maybe more than anybody in the 80s and 90s in terms of growing the profile of soccer as a business in the United States. He's the one that really started the Gold Cup. He, turned it into kind of this biannual event that does pretty well for CONCACAF. CONCACAF, just before we came in the studio, they released a statement. It said, CONCACAF has learned of the passing of former General Secretary Mr. Chuck Blazer. We extend our sympathies and condolences to his family and loved ones. That's it. For what Chuck Blazer did for CONCACAF, I expected a lot more.
Right.
But yeah, it's complicated. On the one hand, he did a lot of good. On the other hand, it was a lot of bad. There were personal excesses.
Sounds like FIFA to me.
Yeah, no, it's the embodiment of FIFA,
right.
of the scandal. You know, he had the towers, he had the apartments in Trump Tower, one for his cats. There was a there was
Wait,
a history. There was a history of domestic violence against his girlfriend.
He had an apartment for his cats?
Yes.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah. $16,000 a month. One bedroom apartment that his cats lived in.
That's ridiculous.
But yeah, he's the embodiment of the excesses of FIFA during the scandal-ridden years, which we hope are behind us, but we won't know for some time.
Yeah, I mean, it appears to be a little better, but you know, there's still a lot of shadiness going on.
Yeah.
Qatar and whatnot. Anyway, we're gonna wrap it up. But are you going to the U.S. Open Cup Revolution versus Red Bulls tonight?
As of now, no.
Yeah, it's supposed to rain.
Yeah. Barring a dramatic change of heart, I won't be there.
I think I'm going to tough it out and go. We were going to give a little shout out to Miami FC versus Cincinnati, or FC Cincinnati, but their match got postponed due to massive rainstorm. Mm-hmm. And as of right now, I believe it's still to be determined when they're going to play.
Okay. But the Revs versus Red Bulls is on.
Yeah, that's on for
Thursday,
tonight.
Jordan Field at Harvard Stadium. And
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, Revs trying to make a run. Some non-MLS teams trying to make a run. So we're keeping track of the U.S. Open Cup too.
Right.
So keeping track of everything over here at the NESN Soccer Show.
And that is a quarterfinal game. The
quarterfinal
is going to determine the last two semifinal entrants.
Exactly. So yeah, that was it felt really quick, but I mean, I think we just got to 30 minutes. We really ran through a lot of topics, and we'll be back next week with some more Gold Cup coverage. And if you want to follow us, follow the podcast, you can go to NESN.com/podcast, YouTube.com/NESN, SoundCloud.com/NESN-com, and iTunes/NESN.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next Thursday.